Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Real Estate Roundup. My name is Emmanuel Romanis. We have a great show for you today. Joining me a little bit later is going to be interior designer Kat Kokenauer. She is the owner of CBC Design Pittsburgh, and we're going to talk primarily about home staging. We'll get into some interior design as well, but the focus today is going to be on home staging to get your home prepared for hopefully a quick sale and a very profitable sale. What is home staging? Well, you know, the basics. You want to highlight the strengths of your home, downplay the weaknesses. You want your space to be balanced. You want to avoid clutter. That's one of the biggest things, is anything that you don't need, you want to get rid of it, or at least hide it so people can't see it. You don't want any type of overcrowding. You want to neutralize. You have your personality, but you're no longer going to be living in the space. So you need to neutralize. That way the people coming in to view the space, to view your home, can now picture their own personality very easily and transfer their own wants and wishes and likes into the space that you have. So, you know, that could be as simple as a can of paint. It could be, something as warm and inviting as some flowers, some nice scent in the kitchen and bath, maybe lemon, orange, things of that nature. Taking personal photographs off the wall, things of that nature. You want to try to neutralize your personality and make it so the people coming in can vision their personality within the space. Green is in. It's 2015, and the green movement is here. It's going strong. It's here to stay. If you have to do any improvements, any upgrades, think green, because that is a hot selling point right now. Repurposed materials. You may have a big mirror laying in the garage. Perhaps we can hang that up and use that. You have a bedroom upstairs where the roof is slanted and there's a little alcove there that you really can't do much with. Something as easy as some wall-to-wall shelves and a desk, and you have a nice little office space. So things of that nature. Easy, inexpensive, but these are some of the things that we can talk about with Kat a little bit later on in the program. The old adage, first impressions are lasting impressions. I can't stress that enough. So we want to do it right the first time. So stick around. We're going to, before we get to Kat, we're going to get to our segment that we call Who Knew, if you remember from last program. So here's the little brain teaser for this segment called Who Knew. Newfound empty nesters wanted to downsize now that their children had grown and were touring a newly built carriage-style home of particular interest. As the real estate agent opened the front door, they were greeted with a rather loud creaking noise. "I have to see about getting that fixed," the agent said. "No need, dear," exclaimed the woman as she reached into her purse. "I can take care of that problem right now." What did the woman have that could take care of the creaking door? While you ponder that, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, before the break, we posed a question to you about the creaky door, and here's the answer. The woman pulled out of her purse a small tube of petroleum jelly, and she lathered up the hinges, moved the door back and forth a little bit, and that cured the creak right up. A little jar of petroleum jelly. So who knew? Petroleum jelly will cure creaking doors. Okay, joining me now is Kat Kokenauer. She is the owner of CBC Design, Pittsburgh. She's an interior designer. And as I mentioned earlier on in the show, what we're going to do is we're going to talk today primarily about interior designing and a little more specifically about home staging. If you're getting ready to sell your home and want to get it prepared and really make it pop and make it tick and give that great first impression, which we all know is just so important. Kat is going to give us some tips on how to do that. So, Kat, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Very happy to have you. Let's start with a little bit about you and a little bit about your company.
Sure.
Tell me about your background and about CBC Design Pittsburgh.
I actually have been designing for about 11 years, doing some commercial work with an exhibit company.
Okay.
For a while, and I also worked with Norwalk, the furniture company.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Most recently, I was with Stuff Furnishings, which they're located on the south side of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And then went independent in September. It was just the right time.
Oh,
I had
nice.
enough of a client base, and I have a little bit more flexibility and can really offer clients a full range of products from all over the city. So I'm not limited to any particular vendors, which is nice.
Oh, that's fantastic. Good for you.
Thank you.
I know venturing out on your own is kind of a two-edged sword. It's very exciting.
Yes.
It can be very scary too.
Yes, indeed. But it's been wonderful. I have incredible clients, and just the contacts I've made in the city with vendors has been really, really phenomenal. There's really some wonderful businesses out there, and it's great partnerships. So
Okay,
I'm very
fantastic.
fortunate.
Well, you had sent me a portfolio of your designs, and I must say I'm very, very impressed with your work.
Thank you.
It's the first time I've seen it.
Yeah.
And you do good stuff.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed with your work. But there are two things that I picked out that we're going to put up, and I'd like to talk about a little bit. I know as far as when you're staging a home for sale,
Yes.
Clutter is one of the big things that almost everybody talks about.
Right.
Reduce the clutter.
Yes.
You know, make it nice and neat. And the first one I want to talk about is a kitchen that you did.
Mm-hmm.
And what really popped out at me on this, Kat, is again the absence of clutter.
Yeah.
You know, the you have the flowers, the nice bowl of fruit that kind of brings it in
Yep.
and gives you that nice warm homey touch. But expand on this a little bit and
Sure.
you know talk a little bit more about you know what you recommend as far as what can the average homeowner do.
Right.
You know, if they don't have the resources to call a professional like
Sure.
yourself, are there some basic tips that they could kind of do?
Absolutely. My recommendation is always decluttering is huge. And that's really hard for people because your home is where you live. If you have children, if a husband, another, extension
Sure.
of your children, it's hard to keep up with the clutter. But
You know, it's amazing how much crap
Yes.
you accumulate
over
the
time,
years.
and people don't even realize.
Oh my goodness.
So I actually, when you're staging a home for sale, it's very different than designing for life.
Sure.
So I always say eliminate as much as you can, but you don't want to strip personality completely away. That said, you want to neutralize as much as you can because you want people to come in and be able to envision their life happening
Okay.
there. So if you have a very specific paint color that is something that's a preference of yours that's maybe outrageous, toning that paint color down,
Okay.
neutralizing a backsplash. Backsplashes can be very, very, very personal. So I think if you can make that more neutral, that's great. Some people don't have those resources.
Okay.
Eliminating, as we said, all the clutter. And then it's the touches. Maybe it's just a beautiful jar of fresh lemons or hand-picked flowers from your garden, whatever it is that might say something, just somebody lives here, this is home, welcome. Anything that smells wonderful in a kitchen too. That's why I always recommend fresh lemons or limes or oranges because you get the smell of the zest. So when you're selling,
idea.
it's amazing how people respond to the sense of smell.
Now, would that follow into, and I know we're focusing right now on a kitchen.
Sure.
I guess that would focus in on the inside of the cabinet as well. Ideally, nobody's supposed to be looking through
But
cabinets.
they do.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course they do. It's human nature.
Making sure your refrigerator's clean. I mean, it's really basic things. That the stovetop is clean. Those things all contribute to the sale of a home.
Okay.
And a staged home, as much as people don't want to admit this, it sells faster. And it generally sells for more money. And oftentimes a very, very, very incremental amount of money will amount to a lot more in the sale. If you're willing to put up a little bit of money to paint to more neutral paint colors, or maybe to add something that either a professional home stager or designer, or even sometimes real estate agents have wonderful, wonderful recommendations. So it's really thinking about the fact that you no longer want to live there, that you're not going to continue to live there, and we want to make it appeal to as many people as we possibly can.
Now, you brought up a good point that I want to expand on a little bit. I know as far as home repairs, there are some things that yield a bigger return than others.
Yeah.
For example, if you want to get a big return, big bang for your buck, change out the front door to a steel door.
Sure.
There's a big return on that. Updating the home office, not so much.
Right.
On the interior design end or staging end, does that follow suit, or are there some things that will yield a bigger quote-unquote bang for your buck than other things?
Well, kitchens and baths are always the place to really focus attention and money if you're able.
Okay.
I always caution people because a lot of times they're very specific decisions. So people they're really into granite, and right now quartz is a very incredible product, but it's an expensive investment and it can be very specific.
Okay.
If you're making selections that are really neutral, that's a great investment. It's going to return probably tenfold on the countertops, especially going from a laminate product or something that's maybe showing its age. Can of paint, I can't tell you how far it can go, and not even just walls, countertops. Even if you don't have a backsplash, sometimes just giving attention to a fresh coat of paint, your ceilings, all of that, really it shows that you care about the house, and people will assume that you've taken care of the house in the same way that you've taken care of whatever space it is that you're improving.
And relatively speaking, paint is pretty cheap.
It's inexpensive. Yeah. So as far as the return on investment, that's immediate. And again, I would really recommend for sale of a home that you take colors to a more neutral place. Gray is kind of the new taupe right now. Everybody loves it. They're really responding to it. Taupe is beautiful. White. Can't really go wrong with colors that will work in almost any environment, and that people can imagine bringing their things into.
Okay.
Yeah.
That certainly makes sense.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure you've heard this more than I have. Being a realtor, again, I offer my limited knowledge of suggestions for staging. But, one of the things that I'll get a kickback on is, for example, countertops.
Sure.
And I'll get back, well, why am I going to spend all that money on countertops? I'm not going to use them anymore.
Correct.
I understand the argument.
Sure.
But then again, if you want to sell the house and you want to get top dollar for it, you kind of have to
have top dollar things. Another thing that you'll hear a lot is stainless steel appliances. That tends to be what the majority would choose. In the kitchen that we're looking at more specifically here, it was white appliances, and that's what we were working with.
Right.
So it's just finding a way to maximize whatever the limitations are. So if you're not changing appliances, and you can add, in this case we added a subway tile backsplash that was white.
Okay.
Those types of things, it's just making the right decision to enhance your investment and make the buyer, much, much, much more interested in that space and seeing their life there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That certainly makes a lot of sense. Let's move over. There's another one here that I want to talk about that really caught my eye. This is a living room or a sitting room.
Sure.
And what really caught my eye about this, again, the lack of clutter, but the way the light comes in and the pillows and the little blanket.
Yeah.
It says to me, it's warm, it's inviting, it's home.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's what you were thinking when you did it, but that's the way it comes across to me.
That's wonderful. I'm thrilled to hear it. I think that anything that you can add, again, that has personality, makes a space feel lived in, loved, but not necessarily yours. I mean, when you're staging to sell, and if you'll notice even the art on the wall, there is nothing that is specific to that homeowner. It's really just art for art's sake. We actually even just hung empty frames, just for some really cool architectural element on the wall and to focus some attention to that space. So it's light. Light is huge. You mentioned it.
Yeah, and this really kicks. Yeah. You know, when I first looked at this, like, oh, it's so inviting. It's so bright. It's airy.
Yeah.
And it really did what you intended to.
Good.
It really caught my eye. Now let me ask you a question about when you were saying art for art's sake. I've heard off and on about the use of mirrors.
Yes.
You know, if you hang a mirror in the right place, it makes the room look bigger. It helps with the light. Does it really do all that, or is that just an old wives' tale?
No, it's absolutely true. What I would say, and there's a mirror actually on this wall as well. Yeah. This mirror was not hung to be functional, so you can't actually see your own reflection in it. It's hung very high, but it was intended to capture the light that's coming in through that window. That was the only window in the space.
Okay.
So actually, this room's very dark most of the time. So we had to figure out a way, how do we make this as bright as possible, as welcoming as possible? People like light. Sure. I believe it was like north facing. It was something crazy. It just didn't get a whole lot of sunlight. So we lightened, actually, there were other window treatments on there. We put white window treatments so the light didn't get sort of sucked in by the color of the draperies.
Right.
Hung the mirror so it reflected light and enhanced the entire space with really beautiful lamps that almost glowed.
Okay.
So I think, to your point, in selling a home, you really want to make sure that you're paying attention to architectural details like windows and what they add to the space. Windows are a huge value add. They people like them. They bring the inside or the outside in. And bring a ton of light in. So you want to make sure that you're framing and enhancing windows and showing people what the potential is there as well.
Okay. Good deal. What about things and I always get hung up on this because I honestly don't know what to do with it, if there's anything you can do. But hallways or throughways. You know, my thinking is it's only a corridor to get from one place to the other, but is there any way to make that pop? Or is it pretty much just you go through it and you go through it and that's it?
I guess it depends on the hallway or the throughway. Sometimes they're pretty narrow and they're only going to serve the functional purpose of a hallway. Sometimes though, and this is something I would recommend, I mean, we're speaking more specifically about staging for sale versus design to live.
Right.
But I would even recommend a small investment in some really interesting art that's very, very neutral. Landscapes, people love them. Or even photography of the city, just really less personal items, not family portraits, not pictures of your dogs. I mean, we all love that, but you're not the one that's going to be living there, so you want, again, to be able to allow the person to interject themselves in your house. So I think sometimes it can be a small piece of furniture if you have the right throughway that you can stage with a functional purpose.
What about light? Is it a good idea to brighten those areas up or just leave them as is, or doesn't it matter?
For me, I think the more light, the better.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a general rule in design that all spaces should have at least 3 sources of light.
Okay.
In some cases, it should be even more. In a hallway, that's a little bit more difficult, and that's why if you have space for a small table, you could put a beautiful ambient lamp on there.
Okay.
Ceiling lights, fantastic, wall sconces, but some of those things are large investments, would require additional electrical work. So for the point of sale, I think it really depends on what the need is for that space, and is it something that's worth putting the investment in that throughway or not? When I design for people to live in it, that's a completely different ballgame.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, let's talk about that, because I don't want to, even though the focus is on staging.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit more about the design part.
Yeah.
You know, what are some of the more unique things that you get into or have done?
We've commissioned original art with local artists, which is incredible. I think I sent you a picture of, we had a homeowner that loved his Chihuahua.
Yeah.
So we had a local artist do 2 portraits of the dog in a really very abstracted kind of way. It was really, really kind of cool and fun.
It was interesting.
It was fun. Well, and that's the thing about design is people always, joke. I like to do a lot of eclectic things. I really like to really show the homeowner's personality because I don't live in that space. It's never about me.
Right.
There's never ego in it. It's truly like, this is not about me. It's just my job to be the ambassador of your taste.
Sure.
Really.
Sure.
And to source the right things. So what I love is just really working with people, keeping an open dialogue. And I don't know that that's really common in my industry. I think a lot of times it's I'm right. And for me, I want the homeowner to have say. That's where you live. And if your home needs to be the space that energizes you, it's what it should be. If it's a space you go for serenity, that's what we're going to make it.
Okay. Do you notice a lot of homeowners, pets are huge, obviously.
Yes.
Do you get a lot of things where they want to incorporate pets in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah. Sometimes we have to find a way for the dog to get onto the couch. They're spending thousands of dollars to have purchased or made. So yes, absolutely. Sometimes it's figuring out creatively how do you mask a really ugly crate or a cage, or where do we put the food bowls in a kitchen? That's always one of the big things. Where does the dog food go? Where do the bowls go? How do you make it functional and lovely? So it's a challenge.
Now let me ask you this: for families with smaller children, that want to redo a space, are there some textures, fabrics, what have you, that just hold up better than others for those type of situations?
Sure. There's actually whole lines of fabrics that are intended specifically for durability and use.
Okay.
There's a product called Sunbrella, and it was actually originally manufactured to do outdoor furniture. Okay. And they've now brought it into textiles indoor. So it holds up to light, which is wonderful. It's fade resistant. You could probably take bleach to most of them.
Oh, wow.
To clean it. Yeah. You certainly can take soap and water that can go in the washing machine. Leather can be a really, really good solution as far as durability goes. Depends on the type of pets you have. And that's also a very personal decision. Some people love leather, some people don't. Any of your man-made fabrics tend to be a little bit more durable. Okay. Yeah, your cottons and linens and silks.
Keep those away.
They're beautiful, but they are not wonderful for houses with small children and pets.
So there's obviously a lot of option out there.
Yes, there's tons of options. And really, I always like to tell people, I'm a problem solver. That's I can make any space beautiful, but it has to function.
Right.
So it's going in and having an open conversation about how you need the space to function, or what the purpose is. Is this to help sell a house? Is this for you, again, to feel a certain way? Do you need to use the space in 3 or 4 different ways? Is it an office / guest room / playroom? Then we have to really think about all of our storage solutions, and the space plan becomes much, much, much more an integral part of that conversation.
Okay. Let's step back a minute to bathrooms, because I know you mentioned that kitchens and baths, the primary things for selling a home. If you have multiple bathrooms, which most homes do, but if we're talking, 2, 3, even 4 baths.
Sure.
Now, I know you were saying you want to neutralize because the people coming in have to envision themselves there. But when you have multiple rooms of the same function, do you want to make them generic, for lack of a better word, or do you want to kind of put a little bit of different personality in each one of those, as far as a sales point?
As a sales point, I think you really want to make them as generic as possible.
Okay.
In all honesty. When you're going to sell, you don't want to be making investments in things that have a very specific personality, or say something very specific. I really dislike having to say that, because it's really my job to create spaces that are very different. But when you are getting ready to sell, the object again is you want to maximize the appearance of space, obviously, of light. You want to maximize anything architectural. You really want to show off the architectural detail of a space that sells a house, and you want to make sure that your color palette's neutral, that you remove things that speak specifically of who lives there. It's generally, you want the homeowner, people are very visual. You want them to come in and see their sofa and see their chair. And I'm sure as a real estate agent, one of the things that real estate agents love to hear is a person that goes into a house and starts saying, I can see my sectional here, and there's where the TV will go. And when a person really starts planning how their life is going to fit into that space, then the real estate agent's done their job, and the stagers hopefully done their job.
So ideally, then the perfect storm is to bring you in to stage the home for quick sale and profitable sale. Then once the new people get in, bring you back to design it for them.
For them, yes. I mean, and
then when they sell, we'll bring you back again.
Yes, please. That's actually how we like this to work.
All right, so we'll certainly work on that. Well, I'll tell you what, this has been fascinating. I enjoyed it very much. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about or bring up, or maybe something that I missed?
No, I think we really covered it. I just think I hope that people consider either listening to the advice of a real estate agent, they're professionals, or bringing in a professional stager. It is a very minimal financial obligation, and the return is really incredible. I have one specific example. I actually did want to mention this to you. There's a house that was on the market for about 4 or 5 months, didn't really sell, needed minor changes, and a minor amount of money. It was really painting a couple of rooms and staging art specifically, and decluttering. And that house went back on the market and ended up selling with multiple offers in 16 hours.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
At asking price versus before it was not at asking price.
That's phenomenal.
And I think the total financial contribution was like $1,500, and there was a $15,000 return on the sale.
Well worth every penny.
So it's sometimes a hard pill to swallow when you're leaving a space to think about an investment, but it certainly can help the process, and that's what we want to do.
Now let me ask you this. This just popped into my head.
Sure.
You say art is a big thing.
Yeah.
In the event of staging something for sale, are there places, perhaps through you or maybe companies do this, where you can rent art pieces?
There are some. It is not as in the Pittsburgh market, there aren't nearly as many options as I would probably like to have. I have some wonderful relationships with people where I may be in a position at times to certainly loan or give things out on a rental basis. Sometimes it's just finding inexpensive items and making them look expensive just by virtue of having the right scale and being placed in the right way. So there's a lot of different ways it can be handled. Sometimes the homeowner owns the pieces and they just have to think about them in a different way. And that's where a professional comes in and can really think in a way that they're editing to make the space warm and welcoming and everything that you want it to be. Yeah.
Well, that certainly makes sense.
Sure.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, again, I want to thank Kat Kokenauer from CBC Design Pittsburgh for being my guest. I hope you enjoyed the program. That's a wrap for now. Until next time, thanks for watching.